Aye, me hearties. We're up to chapter 6. God's people had a hard time not copying everyone else around them. This was especially true when it came to having a king. Although God warned them how kings could be, they just had to have one. So eventually God gave them a king. Be careful what you ask for, you just might get it. The first king was Saul. He was very impressive height-wise and pretty disappointing in every other way. The second monarch, young David from Bethlehem, was definitely much better. In fact, before we get to the king, there's almost no one more important than King David. When David wasn't busy sinning, which he did in some really big ways, he was a good, wise and merciful king. Many good things happened to God's people when David was in charge. They were victorious and prosperous and blessed. But the best thing that happened was what God promised would happen. God told David that he would always have a son to sit on the throne. He promised David an everlasting kingdom. This was good news for David and even better news for God's people. It meant that God had not forgotten his promise, the guarantee he made in the garden. A deliverer was on the way, and now everyone who had ears to hear knew that he would be a son of David. But the next son of David was not the one they were looking for. Solomon started off on the right foot, but he ended up tripping quite spectacularly. After Solomon, the kingdom split in two, with Israel in the north and Judah in the south. Neither kingdom was very good. God punished Israel first and then Judah. In the course of 400 years, God's people would go from being top dog to dog food. They had been kicked out of their promised land just like Adam and Eve had been kicked out of the paradise. And worst of all, David's house and David's throne were no more. The future looked bleak, especially for the promises of God. Chapter 7.